Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Thursday to those of you guys who are watching. Hopefully your week is going well. This is going to be a continuation of my talk on the Mercury Retrograde in Virgo. If you guys like my content, you want to see more, click the bell button below so you're alerted as to when I have new videos coming out on the channel. This is going to be a little bit of my astro musings, and towards the end of the video, I'm going to take you guys through the 12 rising signs and give you my tarot and astrology predictions as to what to watch for during this particular Mercury retrograde season. Well, guys, I've got quite the video for you today, and I'm titling this Logic Prevails Over Assumption, okay? We're going to go deep into some of the themes of this particular Mercury retrograde. There is a lot of layers to it. Some of you guys may have already seen my Mercury in Virgo video. If you hadn't, you can check that out as well. It's definitely a complimentary video to what we're doing here today. Recently, I have felt very inspired to talk more about the complexity of this particular retrograde since I started actually reading a book called The Parasitic Mind. I added it to my Amazon list, so if you guys aren't aware, I have a book list that has like the books that I'm reading and books that I recommend, whether it's stuff that interests me or things that relate to tarot or astrology. But this particular book is by an author called Gad Saad, and it explores the dangers of the parasitic mind. Basically, the author describes this as a mind that is easily influenced by false information, groupthink, and cognitive biases. The book provides insight into the psychology of the parasitic mind and offers strategies for protecting ourselves from its influence. Now, obviously, the title really caught my attention, but as I dive deeper into this particular book, it just screams everything that we need to hear for this particular Mercury retrograde. So a lot of my conversation today was influenced by this and kind of using my, problem solving skills and my critical thinking skills in just what's going on in the world. And I'm going to talk about how I'm seeing some of this particular Mercury shadow play out in some topics that are taking place globally. Now, for those of you guys who want the details, this particular Mercury retrograde is not going to begin until August 23rd. So you guys are watching this probably on the 10th, so we're a little early, but we are still in the shadow period. So a lot of the aspects that we're going to be seeing that takes place during the Mercury retrograde will take place several times. In particular, this is going to be taking place from August 23rd through September 15th, 2023, and Mercury will be retrograde in the sign of Virgo. Now, this is going to affect Virgo and Gemini risings the most because you guys are ruled by Mercury. In particular, other people who have any Virgo placements. So if you have like a sun, moon, or rising, maybe if you have any, personal planets between 7 and 22 degrees, you want to pay attention because Mercury will be retrograding through these degrees. This will also impact the mutable signs. So if you are a mutable sign, so Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and Pisces, between 7 and 22 degrees, sun, moon, or rising, you're going to be experiencing these squares. So I do think that this will affect you as well. Now, in particular, we're going to actually see Mercury in the sign of Virgo from July 28th all the way until October 4th. Quite a long period of time. That is because of the retrograde. So we're going to see Mercury spend a little bit longer, which means obviously he has some digging to do, right? Some information to kind of bring up. During retrogrades, oftentimes we are reviewing the past. And so you're going to have to take a look at which house this is retrograding through in particular. I do talk about this on my Mercury and Virgo video, as well as the August 2023 horoscope. So if you guys want more in depth, definitely take a look at those videos. I do go over this. Now, the shadow period, the pre-shadow period, started on August 3rd. So we've been in it now for about a week. And we're going to see Mercury go direct on September the 15th, okay? Now, the post-shadow is going to end on September 30th, and we are going to see a number of really interesting aspects throughout this particular retrograde, one of which that really interests me the most, I think, is going to be Mercury, both in its retrograde and direct motion, will make several trines to Jupiter in Taurus. So that gives us the opportunity for insight, information, to be able to speak and kind of talk with people who are going to be better informed. We're going to see finally Mercury enter into the sign of Libra on October the 4th, okay? Now, in particular, I want to talk about the Sabian symbols first of all. And I know many of you guys who watch my videos, you've commented about how much you like the details. You guys like all of the degrees and everything. It gives a little bit of like extra pizzazz to what's going on in the cosmos. I really want to break these particular degrees down and read to you guys the Sabian symbols because I think that they're very important. So I'm going to start first with when Mercury turns retrograde on August 23rd. Oh, and I guess I should say, part of the reason why I wanted to put this video out today is because the moon is in Gemini, okay? And as the moon is in Gemini, we're really taking a look at what's happening with Mercury. So as you guys are probably awake in the morning watching this video, the moon is coming into a square with Mercury. So there's some kind of difference of opinion on what's on the media versus what we're hearing or what information we're seeing. And the moon is also building into a square with Neptune. So much of this particular video is going to be talking about information, data, deception, and knowing how to differentiate the difference between what's real and what's not real. And I wanted to do this today in particular because you guys are going to see this themes playing out today and tomorrow, okay? All right, so let's go to the 23rd of this month. And on the 23rd, that's when Mercury is going to start the retrograde. Now, this will be at 21 degrees right here, all right? And when Mercury comes to this particular degree, it's interesting because the entire retrograde, right, between 8 and 21 degrees, Mercury will be backtracking and will be kind of sandwiched in between both an opposition to Saturn as well as Neptune. So thankfully, like it's in a sweet spot where it's not quite feeling the exact resistance of a Saturn opposition and it's not quite feeling the haziness of the Neptune opposition, but it's definitely close enough to be picking up on those energies because it's going to be within a 10-degree orb on both sides. So you're going to see both the themes of these two planets come up quite a bit during this particular retrograde. Now, 21 degrees, right? This degree essentially is a Sagittarius degree. So if you follow degree astrology, we know that both the 9 as well as 21 is Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius has connections to foreign countries, you know, things that are large, things that involve our legs, hips, publishing, universities, and professors. There's a whole long list of things that relate to Sagittarius, but essentially, the way that I practice astrology is I look at the house that a planet is transiting through. That's going to show me where, like what area of life we're going to see this take place. Then I look at the particular sign, and the sign is like the lens which that planet expresses itself. And then the degree might give me information in terms of the topics that are going to be coming up. Now, this is general. Obviously, when I do my forecasts, I'm basing it off of an Aries rising chart, so I can't tell you exactly which house it's going to be in for you, but if you look at your rising sign, you're going to know which house it's in. So something that I noticed in regards to the Mercury retrograde, obviously we're going to see a lot of themes that are very specific both to Virgo as well as Pisces, okay? And we're seeing this opposition that's going to take place between the two signs of the polarity. So you're definitely going to see themes that are going to be coming up that are very kind of Mercurial and Neptunian. Now, throughout this transit, we're going to also see, especially when the retrograde begins, Mercury is going to be in a close conjunction to Pallas. Now, Pallas Athena deals with picking up patterns and being able to kind of see how things are kind of woven together. And we know that Virgo deals with health and wellness and the service industry and things revolving around animals and healthcare. So you're going to see some of these kind of topics come up out in the world. Now, in particular, I think that 21 degrees gets me thinking about what information may be coming, what research may be coming, what data may be coming out relating to some of these topics. Now, there is a fixed star that is connected to 21 degrees of Virgo. This is fixed star Denebinola. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And this particular star has connections to criticism, control, mental illness, diseases, and natural disasters. So Mercury will be retrograding on this degree, which basically means when it's stationing, both when a planet is stationing direct and it's getting ready to retrograde, that degree is very important. We might see themes revolving around that particular degree that's going to kind of get like drummed up. Now, also, when we start this retrograde, the sun will have just entered into Virgo. So while we're in Virgo season, we want to be paying attention to what's going on with Mercury, and Mercury is just about to retrograde. Now, Mercury is pretty close to Mars, obviously slowing down. So Mars is kind of putting the foot on the gas pedal, and it's speeding things up. Mars can deal with illness, sickness, fevers. It can deal with fires, accidents, the list goes on. So I do think that this is going to be another theme, is information coming out revolving around some of these topics. But in particular, in regards to this degree, I'm wondering if we're going to be hearing more about mental illness and criticism and disease. Now, I want to read to you guys the Sabian symbol for 21 of Sag, excuse me, of 21 of Virgo. All right. So we're going to read 22 because it's 21 degrees and change. It's almost 22 degrees, so we're going to read 22 degrees. That's page 202. And let's see, what is the theme here? There we go. Virgo 22, a royal coat of arms. The keyword is prerogative. The theme is the rights of privilege. The symbol speaks to the fact that there is a reason and purpose that everything exists. The image of a royal coat of arms symbolizes authority, certification, and dramatizes the dignity to be found following the traditions and customs that have been established by the elders and the wise men of any society. The symbol emphasizes inherited stewardship and the right to regulate and enforce observance of those social rituals and strengthen and preserve a group's highest values and ideals. At its highest, it represents the ability to solidify group unity and help recognize others in their common purpose, watch for abuse of authority, manipulation, use of devious means for controlling the unsuspecting and gullible. The accent is on inherited rights and privileges. Some groups may assert their authority or pull rank based on their seniority. Your greatest advantage lies in observing the precedent and following established tradition, be sensitive to the needs of others, and maintain their dignity. Guard against abusing privilege or violating social mores, changing the rules or criticizing the way that things have been done that could be met with strong resistance or be resented. Stepping stones is heritage, tradition, family lineage, prerogative, privilege, license, authority, certification, honor, group, and unity. I think that kind of goes without being said. I mean, I think, that happening in a Sagittarius degree makes me wonder if there's going to be more talk revolving around this kind of like elitist mentality with some of these super groups that are making decisions about healthcare, right? Could it also be about unions? Could it also be about healthcare workers? Could it be about people who wear uniforms? Maybe. I think we'll have to see. I mean, definitely, Mercury is slightly in a trine to Uranus. It does stop short of that trine, which is something else that I kind of put in my notes, which I do feel like it can represent negotiations and back and forth, and perhaps people starting to kind of come together and realize that there are certain groups within society that are making decisions and they're not necessarily like following, their own rules, right? So then on September the 6th, where we see the Cazimi, and this is going to be when the Sun and Mercury come into conjunction. As many of you guys may or may not know, this is what we consider basically the moment where we hit the halfway point in the Mercury retrograde. And so if you don't know what the Mercury retrograde is about, this can be the day where you have an epiphany or there is some kind of something that's highlighted or some idea. Generally, when a planet is within 10 degrees of the Sun, it's considered combust. So it's like on fire, right? And if you have Mercury in conjunction to the Sun, I don't know if you guys do, I have that conjunction, it can almost feel like your mind is on fire. But when you have Mercury that's within about a minute of a conjunction ahead of the Sun, see it as almost like Mercury relaying a message to the king or bringing some important news or information out. So out in the world, it can be a moment where there is some kind of exposure or something that is kind of, brought into the public light. Now, this is going to be at 13 degrees, which is an Aries degree. Okay, so Aries has connections to the top of the head. It's about production. It's about military, the body, blood, injuries. and anything involving taking action, essentially, because that's what Aries is, right? But under the film or the lens of Virgo, so taking action revolving around health. Now, retrogrades represent a change in direction. Sometimes it's a reversal, sometimes it's a reveal. So I'm particularly curious about this day because, well, what do we have going on? We've got another moon in Gemini that's going to come into a square with the sun and Mercury. So likely there is something that's kind of coming up, but I do think it's going to be manipulated. I do think it's going to be distorted. And this particular degree, so 13 degrees of Virgo, so we're going to read 14 degrees. This is the Sabian symbol. The theme is background as influence. The symbol speaks to the cultural heritage, origins, and traditions as a driving force that leads individuals to cherish and build on or reject attempt to destroy their own personal roots. The image of a family tree emphasizes background and the historical development of any present situation. On a practical level, when the degree is involved, the implication is a real issue and current social crisis are not being expressed on the surface. Rather, they are deeper ones involving traditions, old alliances, and threatened relationships. Implicit in this image is the idea that each man is unique and that those who are bound by their relationships by common experiences, bloodlines, allegiances, will still at times find themselves at odds with each other as they work through their experiences together in a practical and everyday world. At its highest, the symbol represents faithfulness to the source while yet fulfilling the promise of an individual and unique destiny. Negative is misconceptions concerning biological or social heritage or feelings of alienation and a sense of rootlessness. The accent is on heritage. Genealogy and questions about family roots can arise today. Tracing the origin of history and some object or issue can be time-consuming. Your greatest advantage lies in getting to the bottom of whatever is bothering you. Ask questions and don't be misled by the give answers or sleight of hand cover-ups. Guard against trying to be something or someone that you aren't. Be yourself and play your strong suit. So stepping stones would be heritage, ancestry, root, origins, source, genes, tradition, culture, history, lineage. Okay. So still in Virgo season, Sun conjunct Mercury. We are going to see trines, right, that are going to be happening to Jupiter. And I wonder if this is going to be, in spite of the square to the moon, which can be a little confusing, the trines to Jupiter can be about uncovering information about our heritage. It can be things relating to our ancestry. It can be things revolving around also the origins of health-related issues, getting to the root of health-related issues. Now, obviously, you're going to hear me talk later in this, in this video about like a lot of stuff that's coming out in the world in regards to viruses and potential health issues. And I do feel like we're going to perhaps see some more exposure revolving around where some of this stuff might be coming from. So I anticipate it'll be something connected to that. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. And then on September the 15th, we're going to see Mercury go direct. And that is when technically the Mercury retrograde ends. Okay. And when Mercury goes direct, it will be exact, which is kind of cool because we can read 8 degrees. It'll be exact at 8 degrees of Virgo, and it's going to be just hours after the new moon in Virgo. So when we have that new moon, we're seeing a pretty strong opposition building to Neptune, and we're going to see the ruler retrograde behind the sun, which I anticipate, Mercury coming into conjunction with this degree may bring out more information, especially because Mercury is going to trine Uranus, right? Okay, so 8 degrees. 8 degrees has associations with Scorpio, which, can have some darker, some more morbid themes, things involving graves, corpses, things that might risk your life, operations, things that are destroyed, but also themes involving pregnancy or fertility. There is a fixed star that's conjunct this particular degree, and it's called Alioth, also known as the Black Horse, which has strong correlations and connections to suicide among women, dangers in pregnancy, and it's considered an unfortunate star. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a healthcare specialist, I'm just an astrologer, but I am going to connect the dots on a lot of things because I do think that this is a really important topic. especially pertaining to healthcare and medications, because you're going to see a lot of stuff that's going to come out about these things during this particular cycle. Now, for 8 degrees exact, because it's exact, of Virgo, we have the first dancing instruction. The keyword is assistance. The theme is learning how to do it. The symbol speaks to self-perfection and learning through instruction. It also speaks to the importance of being able to function in a broad variety of social situations. The image of first dancing instruction alludes to coordination, poise, gracefulness, and flexibility as the skills necessary for successful handling in any situation when the going gets rough. It emphasizes the importance of encouragement. The way to begin is to begin, and any beginning requires willingness and risk of failure to try again in the first attempt if the first attempt does not succeed. The key to mastery is practice, feedback, adjustment, determination, refusal to give up. At its highest, the symbol represents cooperation, competence, and an extraordinary talent for finessing the desired outcome in every difficult situation. Watch for codependency and willingness to accept less than desired status quo rather than risking it and going it alone. The accent is on self-perfection, learning through trial and error. Encouragement is key to achievement. Your greatest advantage lies in finding the right teacher and putting in the time and effort to reaching your goal. Be willing to accept constructive criticism, admit your mistakes, and correct them. Guard against giving up too soon or telling yourself you're less than best is okay. Be careful not to step on someone's toes by trying to lead when you should be following. Stepping stones will be self-perfection, refinement of skills, education, mentors, learning, practice, rhythm, maneuvering, cooperation, demonstration, coordination, flexibility. It's interesting that Sabian symbol, at least for me, mirrors a lot of like the Saturn-Mercury opposition. You know, the willingness to kind of get the constructive feedback and like work through it and work with it and not take it personally. Especially really strong, you know, having Mercury in its ruling sign and also having Neptune in its ruling sign. It's going to kind of feel like we're being pulled at 2 different ends of the spectrum throughout this transit. But I really feel like this is about trying again. And a lot of what we're going to see throughout this particular transit is about not getting overwhelmed when we get shut down or when we don't get an answer, not accepting that there isn't any, you know, kind of feedback, there isn't any kind of like evidence or people who are refusing to answer things or be held accountable for things. I think that's going to be another big theme relating to this. So personally, my own interpretation, putting all of these degrees together, which seem very significant, is going to be global Sagittarius, information or learning, education, Aries, health and body, right? That's going to be the Kazemi. And then numbers relating to death, health, and fertility. That's going to be the Scorpio degree. So that's kind of my takeaway from this. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure that some of my perspectives and some of my views might not agree with yours. And like, I completely respect that. But I do think that there's too many coincidences just with some of the stuff that's already coming up, at least for me. Having seen some of the stuff that's going on in the news right now. My concern is that because Virgo deals with healthcare and medical and jobs, and also it can also have a strong connection to gender because, you know, Mercury can represent 2 genders. It doesn't necessarily represent one. That all of these topics are going to be significantly politicized during this particular transit. Now, we're already seeing this right now with Venus retrograde. Venus has been in a sign that deals with children. It's been in a square to both Jupiter, which deals with laws and money and resources, as well as Uranus, which does deal with political figures and the masses. And yeah, it's become politicized, basically. We have seen how that has definitely been a huge movement. And also, we've been uncovering like the money behind some of these changes that are being done to people's bodies. Just leave that at that. Mercury in its ruling sign, right, retrograding directly in between both Saturn as well as Neptune. And so Saturn represents governments and anything that's limiting, but in particular, it can also represent a dissolving of things, boundaries and things that are kind of hidden and secretive. It is in a Neptunian sign. Now, it's also in between Neptune as well. So this is going to be, once again, things that are hidden, secretive, hidden agendas, falsehoods, misrepresentation. So when Mercury in its domicile is trying to get the facts and the information, and it's trying to go back and kind of get all of the data, it's almost hitting a wall as it starts to come into opposition with Saturn, and it's starting to kind of get lost in some of the confusion or lost in translation with the oppositions to Neptune. Now, Mercury also is the dispositor when the Mercury retrograde begins of Mars. So let me take this back a little bit. There we go. So when Mars is in Virgo, so Mercury will be the dispositor of Mars, meaning Mercury rules Virgo, so it does have some kind of connection and correlation with Mars, as well as the Sun. Okay, and both of these planets, Mars and the Sun, are making some pretty significant oppositions the day that the Mercury retrograde begins. So what do I mean by this? We're going to see Mars oppose Neptune, right? Which essentially is going to be a loss of direction, loss of energy, loss of vitality, but more importantly, misleading. And we're also going to see the Sun coming into an opposition with Saturn, which is going to be about dominating people behind the scenes or government or decisions that are being made that is quite literally limiting things involving Virgo-related groups. So whether that's healthcare, whether that's things involving treatment, if this is nurses, doctors, holistic, and naturopaths, if this is things in regards to the service industry, if it's in regards to jobs, you're going to see all of this stuff that's going to come under some pretty intense scrutiny and also like limitations. I'm wondering if there's going to be something going on where there's going to be new laws and things that are being implemented because of the trines to Jupiter. Believe it or not, Jupiter deals more with laws than Saturn does. Saturn just carries them out. Now, Mercury will retrograde also in conjunction to Pallas, and as soon as the retrograde actually begins, that's one of the strongest aspects that I can kind of see that's taking place here. Now, when that happens, once again, this is going to be about picking up patterns, and it's going to be key to really tap into your intellect and strategize your mission throughout this particular retrograde. For me, it's all about using common sense and practicing critical thinking. Don't get mad, don't get avoidant, don't deny, just get your facts straight. Know how to put the bits and pieces of information together to create a whole. So for a lot of us, it's gonna feel like we're having to string together all of these like random coincidences that are happening in the world and realize that it's a part of a bigger web that's being spun, that's intentionally meant, I think, to be misleading, to make people sick, but also to silently and quietly kind of take away our freedom and our rights. Mercury will trine Jupiter several times, which essentially can be about finding the higher meaning, but that's also about checking in with our laws. It's about learning about our rights. It's about talking to people who are professors and doctors and people who are really educated on some of the matters that are going on. I'm especially interested in hearing from people who are involved in like farming, because we're seeing workers is more Virgo, and then the aspects and the trines to Jupiter and Taurus can be about international farmers. You guys have heard me mention several times like the Dutch farmers on the protests on some of my videos, but not a lot of people realize maybe what that might be tied to. And the further that I kind of dig into some of these stories, the more that I realize that I think the reason why the Dutch farmers are really being kind of targeted is because, the way that they're farming, their practices is completely self-sufficient. It does provide a lot of food to Europe, and they're doing it in a way that is, it's just like, just really connecting with the earth and doing it in a really positive way. Obviously, a lot of the moves from the green movement is really putting the pressure on farmers, and you're seeing a lot of stuff that's being kicked up about some of this climate stuff, and activists that are essentially taking over parts of, Dutch parliament, which is pretty much forcing thousands of farmers to have to forcefully sell their land. So you're misplacing farmers and people who have owned land for generations, who know nothing other than farming, and they're also being told that they're going to be punished if they try to go elsewhere and if they try to push back or farm in other places. So you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose for this? What is the agenda for this? Not only how is this going to be affecting farmers and food supply, but how is this affecting all of the people who are producing it? How is this affecting the people who are delivering it? And more importantly, also the consumers who are going to really feel the pinch of not being able to have those particular resources. So throughout this retrograde, we're going to hear a lot about how some of the effects that have been going on, where there's been kind of chaos, Jupiter, Uranus, with farming affects the people who receive that or who process that. But equally, some of the chaos and the things that are going on in the banking system and how that's affecting tellers, banks that are shutting down, people who may not have jobs working as bank tellers any longer because a lot of things are becoming like automatic, or you're seeing everything that's being done through a screen. And how everything essentially, since the North Node Uranus-Mars conjunction, has really lined everything up to become completely automatic, potentially run by AI, everything that's going to be kind of done on a factory line, and we no longer need the helpers. This is when, like, I really think like the shit's going to hit the fan, and people are going to start to realize just how many jobs are potentially going to be taken over, and more importantly, how much we're going to have to change, cut back, and give up in the name of health or for the greater good. That's a phrase that really should concern you when you hear this. Something I've been listening to a lot, podcasts that I have become really a fan of is, what is it called? It's Ideas Have Consequences. You should go check it out. Really interesting. I feel like it's really well done. The guy who runs the podcast is just talking about some of these like global themes and some of the ideas that are behind them. And he talks a lot about how essentially like, you know, words are being manipulated, and like, you know, it's really kind of eerily similar to some of the things that went on during, you know, the World War II period with the Nazis, and how they were essentially justifying what happened with, the genocide of Jews. And that words and phrases were manipulated to feel more digestible, right? So I think that that's something else that we're going to see during this particular retrograde. That's just my opinion, especially considering Mercury in Virgo it doesn't mince words, right? It's very particular about what it says. It's very adamant about things. And I'm going to give you guys some examples about how words are really important right now in just a minute with some things that I've kind of picked up. But I think, you know, checking in with people who have that information, who may be well-read, well-educated, they have the degrees, they have the information, they have the right, and they should have the platform to be able to kind of share this information freely, right, Jupiter, with everyone. And then finally, you know, Mercury is going to stop short of a trine to Uranus. So it'll be a couple degrees away from that particular trine. It's also going to stop short of an opposition to Neptune, and so likely what Mercury is holding back is that there may potentially be news that's so chaotic, right, that it probably will need to be buried in an echo chamber of the news cycle and what the mainstream wants you to hear. Okay, so something that is intentionally being held back. Will we see that when Mercury comes into a trine with Uranus? Perhaps. Sure. When is that going to be? Here we go. Interestingly enough, it looks like it's going to happen when the moon's kind of going through there too. So September 29th through the 2nd of October, as we see that trine to Uranus. So yeah, Mercury's not going to kind of leave shadow until closer to about the 30th. And then when it does, it trines Uranus. Okay? All right, just so you guys know. So that's kind of when things are kind of getting weird. And we've got Venus also that's coming out of a square with Uranus. Yeah, so something's definitely going down. All right, so how am I seeing this? How have I kind of put some of the pieces together? Like many of you guys who watch my videos, I see a lot of you guys as personal clients. So first of all, thank you for your support. I appreciate it. And it's always awesome to kind of hear feedback from people privately and also in the comments. So feel free to leave your comments if you'd like. But to hear people who say like, hey, I really appreciate like what you're doing and that you're willing to like talk about these things. You know, I try to like walk the line. But the truth is that it's getting harder and harder for me to like walk that line. And I think you're going to see this through some of the examples. And hopefully this inspires you to go and do some research of your own. Now, essentially, Mercury's data, facts, and figures. Okay, so it's really strong in the sign of Virgo. The oppositions are relational. 180 degrees in astrology is very similar to what we see between the first house and the seventh house, right? So when we see these planets come into opposition with Pisces, it means that there's stuff going on here, right, that is being affected by what's going on over here, Pisces. So this is a retrograde where you don't want to just look at the house where Mercury is retrograding. Equally, you need to look at Pisces. You need to look at the 7th house from that particular sign. And when I say it's relational, it means that the house is affected by the retrograde in many ways, and it's shadow affected by Pisces. Pun intended, right? Saturn and Neptune are there. The opposite is, it's an excellent time to look at the opposite sign. Equally, it's a good time to do some shadow work. And in my opinion, when in doubt, stop and meditate. Don't take anything at face value. Videos, news, articles, this video included. So I'm going to follow my own advice with this. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, go and do some research, check it out for yourself. Saturn and Neptune are both in Pisces and they're retrograde. So meaning they're not fully functional right now, okay? And, that's even more of like a breakdown of what's going on behind the scenes. Pisces is emotional. It's psychic. It rules mental health institutions, hospitals, prisons, lost people, mental health, but also it has connections to immigration. I think these are all going to be hot topics that we're going to see throughout this particular, retrograde. I'm sure many of you guys heard my astro weather in this last week, where I've been reflecting on the oppositions to Saturn and Neptune and going like, who the hell dropped the ball? I think a lot of us are going to be asking these questions, quite frankly. And something I've been marinating a lot on is just like how to have a logical conversation with somebody who's heavily wrapped up in an emotional state or flat out in denial or delusional. And maybe that's just me, right? I try to be as like rational and grounded as possible, even in spite of what I do for a living. I have to be. That's the only way that I can do this and stay sane. But I'm finding that it's really challenging to have conversations with some people when emotions get so intertwined into what's going on politically and economically and what's happening in the world and various wars and just other belief systems in general. And it's almost like emotions are just making people like insane, and people get so emotional that they seem to confuse emotions with facts and figures. And this quite literally is the opposition between Mercury and Virgo and Saturn and Neptune and Pisces. And where I think to some extent, this is like almost encouraged. And I think that we might see a little bit of this, that, getting people angry and emotional can be a good way to be able to kind of stir things up and create distraction. Beware of the blind mob mentality, because I think that this is going to be a huge theme, quite literally, with Saturn and Neptune being here. I know that you're going to see some trines to Uranus, so it can produce some shocking things that can kind of push people into action. Something that really kind of grinded my gears this week, and I've been really digging through it and kind of going back and forth about it, because I'm a Zoom user. I use Zoom for all my sessions so clients can have things that are recorded. Primarily also because I have people all over the world, but all over Twitter there was all this stuff coming up about the Zoom user agreement, and people were putting Zoom on blast on Twitter. Which is interesting because it looked like the agreement was like back from like March or May, one of those 2 months. But in the fine print, people were dissecting the fine print, which was essentially saying in the user agreement, so to use Zoom, you were essentially giving your okay for your audio, your video, all of these things to be wholeheartedly utilized to train AI. And that may be subject to being given to third parties. Okay, so like what? So obviously Zoom has all that stuff. It keeps everything on a server, whatever. But that's kind of concerning. And I've heard from some people that they have issues with Zoom. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. But that's concerning because we don't know what they have access to, what they're listening to. Are they taking information from real conversations? Are they using that to, mimic people's voices? Are they using that to create a database of what people are talking about? Who are they selling that to? For me, very concerning. I kind of laugh. I called it, Zoom having their Bud Light moment, but that's basically what they've been having on Twitter this week. Had to do a whole cleanup campaign being like, we changed it and we're not doing this and we altered this, and they're putting out all this information. I'm still kind of on the fence about it. But that was enough for me to be like, hold up, full stop. That's an invasion of privacy. But once again, this is also about consent. And so where we're consenting to things because it's easy, where we are not reading the fine print, where we are overlooking things and just clicking, yes, I agree to this update in my phone or in my Zoom or whatever, and it's not a big deal. those are the things that you guys want to be reading. You guys need to be looking at that stuff because that's where all of the meat is going to be. As a general rule of thumb, things can't be done, right? The natural law, without telling you. And so whether this is something that's being told to you in fine print or it's, you know, something that's being plastered all over, you know, media, it's out there. The truth is out there. And that's what a lot of the Mercury trine Jupiter is going to be about. So that's one thing that I kind of picked up because Mercury can be dictation, it could be software, it could be technology, it could be what you're hearing, what you're saying. And we don't know where the hell that stuff's going. I mean, I'm so freaked out by Facebook and Instagram as it is that I feel like, is Zoom about to be like the next thing? You know, I don't know. I'm concerned about hospitals and hospitality, hotels being overwhelmed by immigrants and immigration. You're hearing a lot about this in the UK. I live in the United States, but I've heard from various sources and independent media that I'm following that there's so much immigration and things going on that you're seeing people flooding into hotels. Apparently, this is also pretty significant in New York City. You know, Pisces is immigration and those who are lost. And when we see Mercury retrograde, I'm thinking about how this is impacting the healthcare system. You know, if we're seeing healthcare systems that are being overrun and like flooded with immigrants and you know, various illnesses and other things that are happening and that system getting overwhelmed. I think about, you know, how words throughout this entire retrograde, and to some extent they have for a while, but really throughout this retrograde are going to be manipulated and changed. And I want everybody to really think about the Saturn and the Neptune retrograde and the fact that it is in Pisces, right? Virgo is words and ideas, communication, but true sinister forces, if you believe in that, I think hides in the dark. I don't think it's in plain sight. So we hear a lot of things about the World Economic Forum. We hear a lot of things about, you know, what's going on with all these like evil super lords and all of these people that are in the media and the drug and the pharmacy companies. But the question is what's behind all that? Who's pulling the strings behind this? What's the real agenda behind this? And I think it's to isolate people further. I think it's to negatively impact people's mental health. I think it's to have them addicted and hooked on, you know, pharmaceuticals. I think that, you know, these true dark, sinister forces, they're not in the light, they're in the dark. And so a lot of people can get really consumed with, well, this is what we see right here, and this is what's happening, and we're trying to kind of piecemeal all of these things together, which may be intentional, so you're not really following what's really going on and realizing that it's not a bunch of isolated situations. It's things that are happening on a global level, right? Pisces, which is also traditionally ruled by Jupiter. And we see Jupiter and Uranus getting closer and closer. Granted, Jupiter is going to be retrograde at some point here soon, but eventually in the spring of next year, they're going to conjunct. And they're going to conjunct at 21 degrees, which means we are going to see some global explosion situation in regards to money and resources and currencies. And we're going to find out that the whole system is being manipulated and controlled to be funneled into one system, one financial system, one food management system, right? And also true evil hides in the shadows with this Neptune sextile Pluto. We're going to lose this soon. You know, this isn't going to be here forever as Pluto starts to come back into Aquarius next year and Neptune inches closer to the late degrees. You'll see them kind of close to a sextile, but this still makes me feel like there is something that's going on behind the scenes. As soon as Neptune drops into Aries and Pluto moves into Aquarius, right? Uranus moves into Gemini. Guys, the world's going to be very different in another couple of years, and it's going to be as a result of the things that are taking place now. Something that really also kind of grinded my gears, I've been watching Australia's Pfizer questioning, which I'm not going to show you guys the clips because I'd rather not, but I'll just tell you go and watch it. But being flat out asked about the effects of the vaccines, in particular questions in regards to effectiveness and what they know about heart-related issues, and they have no response. The U.S. is also investigating overreaching in regards to mandates and policies, and that's currently going down. And it came out in the news, which you probably didn't hear, but Pfizer employees and execs were issued a solo batch, which was by definition a completely different lot and different type of formula of vaccination than what was rolled out for the masses. And then had to disclose that and then defend why they actually were either exempt from taking it or took something completely different. Now, this week in the news, it's being touted as like this really big thing. For the very first time ever, there is a postpartum depression pill that is hitting the market, claiming to work faster than any antidepressant that is taken for only 2 weeks. And it may, it may positively affect, supposedly, once again, I'm not a doctor, issues revolving around postpartum depression, which is definitely a real thing, at least here in the United States. My concern is just circling back to what I told you guys about when this degree of Mercury goes direct. And that 8 degrees, which is connected to that star that is specific about suicide among women, danger in pregnancy, and it's an unfortunate star. So when this came up in the news, I was like, well, let me go read about this particular drug. I'm probably going to mispronounce it. I think it's Zuravae, Zurzuvae. Go look it up. And I just literally went on the manufacturing website. I looked at the warnings and precautions. And this is what it says, very simply. CNS depressant effect can cause depressant effects and confusion, can develop depression, and consider dosage reduction if necessary, can induce suicidal thoughts and behavior, consider changing the regimen if necessary, including discontinuing use, especially if the effects worsen. And also there is concern, and this is per the website, with embryo-fetal toxicity, may cause fetal harm. Advise a pregnant woman of the risk to the infant exposed in utero. Advise females of reproductive potential risk to the fetus and use of contraception during treatment for 1 week after the final dose. So that's kind of concerning, right? I mean, there's no doubt that that's a real issue, and is definitely, I think, especially here in the United States, we don't have some of the support that we really need. Healthcare is like outrageous. We're not really getting some of the benefits that you may see with postpartum care, in-home care, medical treatment, time off, time with family. Like we don't get a lot of those benefits unless you work for like an individual employer who provides that. We don't really have anything that is as helpful as what you might see in parts of Europe. Something else that's been trending on Twitter is something known as Disease X. Right? Those of you guys who have been watching some of Bill Gates' war games, the tabletop exercises might sound a little familiar. This is trending on Twitter after a Sky News video surges showing UK scientists have begun developing vaccines as an insurance against a new pandemic caused by an unknown disease X actively taking place at government's high security labs in the UK. There is research, this is a separate topic, so on this, concerning, right? So doing research on the potential disease X, trying to develop a vaccine. This is an article, I'm reading it directly from the article, and talking about how they're like, oh, we're trying to produce something within 100 days. In case there is something that comes out, we're prepared. I don't need to say anything. I'll just leave it at that. And I've been doing some research on, in preparation for this video, just kind of like connecting all the dots financially with some of the stuff that's been going on with the mandates, and also just how some of the medical community has gone along with some of this stuff. And now there is information that's emerging. There's research and data that is emerging, linking medical professionals who are financially incentivized to push mandates and claim patients had underlying issues connected to COVID, and some who were potentially punished and had to give back funds if they were caught giving honest medical advice. So imagine some of these doctors, which from what I understand, the reports that I was reading was more connected to OBGYNs and female health doctors and women who are going and getting exams or trying to get pregnant, or people who are managing their pregnancies, coming in and saying, oh, well, I have illness, I have these symptoms, which may have gone hand in hand with pregnancy, but then they were saying, well, there's underlying issues. Okay, we're going to write it off as COVID. And they're making recommendations for treatment using said vaccines, and then getting paid for that. But if they were caught making recommendations against that, doctors were having to pay those funds back. Why is it that there is incentivizing anything, not even about that, just drugs in general? Why are we training doctors to do that? Where is the connection between big pharma and also, medical? The whole system is set up for you to be sick. noticed that from the very beginning, since 2020, we didn't see a lot of people, and a lot of them were censored fairly enough. We didn't see enough people touting like the natural treatments and like what you needed to do, and the vitamin D and the sunlight and like taking care of your immune system. Not to mention the cheap drug options that were pretty much vetoed from the beginning. It was more about treatment, not prevention. Kind of concerning. Just recently, in this last week or two in Los Angeles, scientists have developed what might be the holy grail molecule that eradicates all solid cancer tumors while leaving other cells unaffected. A breakthrough was achieved by a team at City of Hope Hospital, one of the largest cancer research and treatment organizations in the United States, that targets the proliferating cell nuclear antigen protein. The mutated form of PCNA assists cancers in the repair of growth. The team has developed a molecule under the name of AOH1996 that targets and eradicates the mutated PCNA. Previously, it was considered challenging to target for therapy, and it appears to annihilate all solid tumors in preclinical research. Obviously, great to hear. But if we're finding out that now there's treatments coming out for cancer, which I'm convinced have been out there all along, why is it coming out now? As of 2022, the City of Hope Hospital has acquired the nationwide cancer treatment centers of America. So they've bought those centers. Now it's coming out that they've got the treatment for cancer at a time where turbo cancers are ticking up in the medical world. Maybe you've been hearing about these. In particular, also strokes, in a strange uptick, turbo cancers and strokes have definitely been a theme since 2021. I'm going to be thinking and looking a little bit more about this excess mortality numbers that have been coming up. Also questioning what this theme is in regards to global boiling. I guess we've moved past global warming. Now they're calling it in the media global boiling. Interesting that mutable squares deal with weather changes. And Mars, when this retrograde begins, is in Virgo. Now I'm filming this, what is today? The 9th? I'm filming this on the 9th, so the day before you guys see it. And I've been watching everything that's been going on with these fires in Hawaii. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, if you've seen it. Kind of concerning. Obviously, Mars is coming into a trine with Uranus. And I remember saying to you guys we were going to see some action involving fires. I think there might be some more of this. And I'm questioning, because these mutable squares keep coming up in regards to some of this weather-related stuff, like what is real versus what is fake globally? What is being manipulated? What is being created? Where and why are all these fires coming up? And why are they happening so suddenly? And where is it potentially limiting where we can go and what we can do? Been hearing bizarre reports about certain cities that are like, oh, we're having a heat wave, you know, like certain things have to shut down because it's so hot. Continuing to look at reports coming out from the Vayers, including issues pertaining to births and conception, which, being somebody who's 33, 34 years old, is definitely something that would interest me. And any issues or more information in regards to some of this government oversight, especially on freedom of information, okay? Freedom of information. So Saturn in opposition to Mercury is like what is being held back, what's being concealed. Especially pertaining to health and healing practices, natural cure resources, self-efficiency for those who want to reject the big pharma campaigns, and how doctors are being silenced and have been silenced for some time. It's really amazing to like see what's going on Twitter right now. I'm trying to be more active on Twitter. I'm not too crazy about social media in general right now, but some people that I follow that you may want to listen to, you might want to just hear what they have to say. These are just some people that I have kind of picked up over the last year or two. Dr. John Campbell, he's also found on YouTube. Dr. Joseph Mercola, Dr. Chris Shoemaker, who recently has taken Twitter ablaze with some of his interviews in regards to some of his findings this week. I really recommend listening to that. Dr. Naomi Wolf, Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Peter McCullough, all people that I really admire and that I've been listening to. And also the protocol from Dr. Peter McCullough might be something that you want to look into. I'm anticipating we're going to hear more once again about migration and immigration. I don't know if that's going to be like necessarily people, or if it's going to be more in regards to delays, limits, documents, challenges with proof of jobs and stability, and the ability to travel or immigrate freely. And we may also see issues with travel, especially international discussions about travel and health regulations. And then finally, job numbers, which I know I've said a lot of, but you know, part of Mercury's retrograde going through this and making oppositions to Saturn and Neptune is like starting to kind of see the harsh realities of like, wait a second, are companies really performing as well as we thought that they were? And you know, how are the job numbers or the unemployment numbers or the job market, you know, actually really doing compared to what we're actually, you know, seeing in like the stock market or what have you, right? So once again, like my inspiration from this came from this book, and it's been really influencing the way that I'm thinking. And thankfully, the author actually put out 10 major takeaways for those of you guys who don't have the book. Once again, I put it in my Amazon book list, but I'd like to read them to you. And I really want to reiterate, for the sake of the clarity given this topic and also the transits, I am taking this word for word from the author's top 10 list. So once again, this is from the book The Parasitic Mind by Gad Saad, which ironically was released October of 2020. Perfect timing. I don't know if he like busted that out because of what was going on in the world or what, but these are amazing pieces of advice, even if you don't read the book. Okay, so number one, he says, beware of idea pathogens. Idea pathogens are ideas that are harmful to the minds and society. They can spread through social media, the news, and even our own friends and family. Number two, don't be afraid to question authority. Just because someone is in a position of power doesn't mean they're always right. Be willing to challenge the status quo and think for yourself. Number three, beware of groupthink. Groupthink is when people make group decisions that are not in their best interest because they want to fit in. Be willing to speak up and disagree with the group if you think they're wrong. Number four, beware of echo chambers. Echo chambers are online communities where people hear information that confirms their existing beliefs. This can lead people to becoming more extreme in their views and less open to new ideas. Number five, beware of confirmation bias. Confirmation bias has a tendency to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs and ignore information that contradicts them. This can lead to making bad decisions and believe in things that aren't true. Number six, beware of backfire effect. The backfire effect is when people become more entrenched in their beliefs when they're presented with evidence that contradicts them. This can happen because people don't like to be wrong, and they like to feel like they have to defend their beliefs in order to save face. Number seven, beware of the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect is when people are incompetent at something, overestimate their abilities. This can lead them to making bad decisions and believe things that aren't true. Be aware of availability heuristics. Availability heuristics is a mental shortcut that we use to make decisions based off of information that is most easily available to us. This can lead us to make bad decisions because we may not be considering the relevant information. Beware of the anchoring effect, number 9. The anchoring effect is when our judgment is influenced by the first piece of information we're given. This can lead us to make bad decisions because we may not be considering all the relevant information. In number 10, beware of sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is when we continue to invest in something even when it's clear it's a bad investment because we don't want to admit that we've made a mistake, and this can lead us to lose even more money in the long run. Anyway, thought that was important. Wanted to share that with you guys. Those of you guys who have stayed this long, I'll take you guys through the 12 rising signs. I know a couple people were asking for it, and just give you guys my hot takes on what to watch for. As always, I'm a Western astrologer. My predictions are going to be for whole signs, so please listen to your rising sign. If you don't know what your rising sign is, go online, check out an astrology chart calculator. Use either whole sign or Placidus, and then plug in your time, date, and location of birth. Look at the 9 o'clock hour. That's going to give you your rising sign, or book a reading with me. And I really encourage you guys to listen to your rising sign, your sun, and your moon sign in that order. All right, so this is gonna be for Aries and Aries rising. All right, Aries, so you're gonna have Mercury going retrograde, and this will be taking place in your natal 6th house, all right? So the 6th house deals with health, your office space, your habits, your pets, your daily routines, all of these like oddball things that you kind of need to get done on your to-do list. Obviously, this is a house that is quite active because Mars is also in this house, so you have already seen some of this energy kind of peeking up. And Mercury rules not only your 6th house, but also your 3rd house, which is about communication, cars, driving, information, gadgets, so on and so forth. So for me, a lot of the Mercury retrograde and the oppositions between the 6th and the 12th house represent finding a mind, body, spirit balance, okay? So you might notice that there's something that's like a little bit out of balance. Maybe you're really focused on, hey, I want to eat better, I want to work out, I want to, you know, have a new job, I want a better routine. And the impact or the effects that that's actually going to have on you mentally, spiritually, or emotionally. You want to be careful with the 6th and the 12th houses though, because these are houses where we can get a little lost. It can be about illness and accidents and things that kind of come out of the blue. So a lot of what I've been talking about throughout the kind of the general description really applies to you. I think it's really about how we're, you know, having better organization and a commitment to a routine can be really good for you and also for your spirit. Yes, you can be more prone to getting sick. And so if that happens, you want to be mindful that you're taking adequate time to rest and recuperate, especially with all those planets that you have in Pisces in your 12th house. This is also the house of like assistants and helpers. So it's a good time to like reconnect with your healthcare team. Maybe you need to get a car worked on. Maybe you need to get a gadget fixed. Maybe you need to take a pet to the vet, or you need to kind of like check in with like a dentist or something like that can happen as well. And there could be some unexpected either work or health related themes that can come up. All right. Look for the trines to Jupiter to be where you get some kind of insight or something that comes in that you might have to pay for, right? 2nd house. And good advice is going to be worth kind of paying for. So whether it's like speaking with a professional, you know, joining a subscription that's going to give you information on health or diet or fitness might be really helpful. But just be careful with whose advice you buy, okay? Because Mercury is going to oppose Saturn and oppose Neptune. There can also be the sense of like, what the hell is going on in the workplace? Like, you know, things are disorderly, you know, coworkers aren't doing their part, you know, and there's some kind of like chaos going on in communication at work, some breakdown in communication or with health or assistance, okay? All right, so let's take a look here at what the cards say for you. And the card that I got for you is the World card. So for some of you guys, it might be like, that's it, I'm done. Like I quit, you know, like this is my breaking point. But it could also be that you're completing something, you're learning lessons, you're finally cycling out karmic matters or issues, you're finally releasing things that you're ready to release. This is the final card of the Major Arcana, and it does talk about just wrapping things up that need to be wrapped up. So I wonder if it's also about just finally like getting all of the things on your to-do list kind of checked off. So that way you have like a little bit of peace, right? Maybe that could be the case. The 6th house is also about where we kind of get our affairs in order before we meet other people, Libra 7th house. And the 12th house is about where other people are kind of dealing with things before they meet us. So there can be like this feeling of kind of like, you know, being discombobulated in regards to relationships with other people. And this might be the time where you're making some big decisions about whether or not like relationships are potentially working for you. And you might be thinking about whether or not it's time to kind of cut something loose and it's time to wrap something up, okay? Good luck, my Aries rising. All right, so we have got, there we go, Taurus and Taurus rising. What's up, Taurus? You're going to be experiencing a Mercury retrograde taking place in Virgo in your 5th house. And this happens to be a sister sign. So Virgo is also an earth sign, just like you. So if you happen to have any Taurus placements, specifically sun, moon, or rising between like, let's say 7 and 22 degrees, you'll be experiencing a Mercury trine, which is generally pretty favorable. It's going to increase the ability for you to have comfort, security, pleasure, communication. And Mercury is going to be retrograding in your 5th house, which obviously deals with children, creativity, self-expression, taking chances, investments. Yeah, your love life, right? Definitely your love life. But also I think of like Virgo as care and responsibility. I think of the 5th house as the things that you love. So kind of reevaluating what care you're giving to those you love or the hobbies that you love. Could you return back to a romantic partner? Could you hear from one? Yeah. Could you return to an old hobby? Sure. There's definitely a lot of reevaluating what you're willing to take risks on. Now, what I like is that it's also going to be in a trine several times to Jupiter in your sign. So it's about a little bit of faith and optimism going a long way, trying to be more open-minded when it comes to changes in this department, whether it's how you're communicating with your romantic partners, if it's being more optimistic about creative endeavors, jumping back into the dating pool, or being open to having a family, starting a family, getting news of pregnancy. Any of these things can be happening during this particular retrograde. Now, Mercury rules your 2nd as well as your 5th house. And so the 2nd house is about what you value, what you invest in, what you're doing with your resources. Those of you guys who are into investments and trading, I would be particularly careful here, especially with your ruler being retrograde. It does kind of indicate that there are some changes in direction that's going on the home front, and also in regards to your willingness to take risks. So maybe those of you guys who have been making investments over the last week or so, you've kind of seen that things have been kind of topsy-turvy. I would be careful when it comes to making some significant decisions with finances, especially because some of these oppositions that are taking place to your 11th house. Now, while the 5th house is about your chances, it's about your romantic partnerships, your happiness, your self-love, the 11th house is other people. So I would be really careful about like taking investment advice from groups or following what seems to be kind of like trending maybe online, or investment advice that you maybe get from a friend that might be a little sticky. And you may be feeling kind of pulled, right, between what you want, what makes you happy, what your gut or your intuition is telling you, or maybe just, your relationship or your kids versus like your friends, right? And this is a time where you're needing to kind of love yourself and love yourself a little bit more, especially if you're not feeling like you're getting the receptivity that you're hoping to get from others, and whether this is like people you network with or people on the socials or maybe just some of your friends. There is a need to kind of tune into what makes you happy and like what you can create outside of your relationships with other people, okay? So let's take a look. Let's see what the cards say for you, Taurus. Of course, you get the Hierophant. So this is your card, and this does talk about like tradition and what it means to kind of like show up and almost like do the honorable thing or do the right thing. I think what's interesting is like the trines, once again, to your sun, your moon, your rising, or to Jupiter, is about tapping into your own inner knowledge and awareness, and also like tradition. Taurus is known for being conservative, for being traditional, and obviously that's not something that's common these days. And I think also with Jupiter and Uranus being in your sign, it can be about you challenging norms and what it means to do something that's traditional, and if you go against that, or maybe if like the most punk rock thing you can do is to like choose something, that's like much more of like a conservative lifestyle or a conservative choice, whatever that might apply to. And I think that this is going to be about you actually choosing that and kind of realizing like, okay, it does pay to play it safe in this situation, or to want to have a conversation or a discussion about getting something clear about a relationship or about a commitment or about a love affair. It can be about being a disciplinarian as well to younger people or to children, or taking a much more kind of serious approach to some of these topics. Personally, I think this is cool because it can also talk about you like maturing and growing up a little bit. And maybe, that opposition from Saturn and Neptune in your 11th house is like recognizing like where you're doing things different than some of your friends or some of your peers, and kind of like going your own way, right? Good luck, Taurus. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. What's going on, Gem? You're going to be having a Mercury retrograde, which definitely affects you because you are ruled by Mercury being a Gemini. So Mercury is connected to your first house, but it will be retrograding in your fourth house, which deals with your home, your family, your roots. It can be like roommates, it can be the past, it can be property and real estate related things. And as Mercury goes retrograde, yes, you get a little irritated because it's your chart ruler, but it's making you go back to something, review something, rethink something. And remember, retrogrades are about a change in direction. So if you've been thinking about moving, you might change your mind. If you're in the process of, getting a house situated, you might realize, I got to make a change. So rearranging things can come up, especially with Mars being in this house. And if you're somebody who happens to live with friends or roommates, there can be some changes going on there because Mars is close by. Now, signing leases, buying houses, moving, all of these things might experience some hiccups, so be mindful of that. Obviously, we want to read the fine print. But I really think that for many of you guys, the challenge is that Mercury is going to square your sun, moon, or rising, and it's going to create some friction in how you communicate with people in the home. And it's going to oppose your 10th house kind of Saturn, Neptune energies, where you're trying to kind of figure out what direction you're going on with your career, what your purpose is out in the world, your responsibility for work. Definitely like parenting issues can come up here. So if you're a parent, you can be feeling like you're being pulled between just the rearranging and the changes that are going on in the home front and like the need to really be 100% at work. Perhaps with some of the changes going on during this retrograde, it's kind of making you like not so present at work, and you can have some issues with authority. You can also have some issues with your vision for how changes at home or with your family could potentially be affecting your ability to work or vice versa. So home and work responsibilities are going to kind of be pulling back and forth. I definitely think that there can be like a solution, or there can be like an awareness when you have the Cazimi that takes place in September. Perhaps there is some kind of like communication or something that goes on with a neighbor or even with a sibling, because the sun rules the third house, that may offer some kind of insight or support. That will be also coming into a trine with Jupiter. So you've got support in the background, whether it's your spirit team, if it's a partner, if it's a family member who can kind of help you through some of this, that can guide you and give you some really valuable insight. You're also experiencing these trines in what are traditionally water houses. So there's something very emotional that's going on about the physical changes taking place. And obviously Gemini is the square point between both Virgo as well as Pisces. So if you're like a Gemini rising, or if you've got, Gemini planets in the first, this square is really going to test your communication and your intellectual abilities. It's really going to put the pressure on you, and you might kind of feel like, oh my gosh, there's no communicating with crazy, somebody's not getting the picture, I'm not getting through to them. We're speaking different languages. So just keep in mind that, although this is stressful, it's trying to kind of get you on the up and up with like making the necessary changes emotionally or within the home front, so you can really be very capable of being able to do what you need to do out in the world, right? So let's see what the cards say for you. The card that I get for you is the Three of Wands. So this is about being like, I'm on my way, I'm going. I wonder if some of you guys are traveling back home, you're going to go visit family, family's coming to visit you. Maybe you're researching new areas that you could potentially move into. Maybe you're looking for jobs in another location, which would allow you to relocate. You're on your way. This process likely has already started, so this should make sense to some of you guys. It might also be a bit of an adventure, right? With the trines to Jupiter, it's like, going to some uncharted areas, or maybe looking into neighborhoods that, you've never really considered before, or states that you've never considered before. And also like being on a mission. I think of the Three of Wands as being on a mission. So whether this is just reorganizing your kitchen or your closets, or it's being able to reorganize the home and pack up and go somewhere else, be very committed to your vision and your end goal, right? And be really aware of the process, because it's going to be a process that's going to be unfolding. You're familiar with the number 3. It's very much connected to Mercury as well as Gemini, the third house. And also I think of like the threefold, right, that happens with a retrograde, the pre-shadow, the retrograde, the post-shadow. So you're in this process until about October. Good luck. All right, so we have got Cancer and Cancer rising. You'll be experiencing a Mercury retrograde in your third house in the sign of Virgo. Now, good thing is Mercury is very comfortable in this house. It's very familiar with the third house. It functions very well here. Virgo is a kind of like a friendly sign, right? It sextiles Cancer. So the more that you're leaning into your intuition, your emotions, your home, the more that you can do your mercurial kind of work. Now, a Mercury retrograde in the third house is definitely going to have some reworking of your ideas, how you communicate, how you speak. This can also bring a breakdown of issues with phones, gadgets, cars. There can be some miscommunications and issues that can also be kind of taking place with siblings, with relatives, or with neighbors. And Mercury in particular has connections not just to your third house, but also to your 12th house, which can be about your deep subconscious, dreams, things that are hidden, things that are kind of secretive and that take place behind the scenes. I wonder if this is going to be about a conversation where you like reveal some kind of information to a sibling or vice versa, that there is some like secret text message or email or something that's missing or that you thought, went missing that like reappears. Equally, it could be about a document. So if you're like missing a passport, or if you're missing an ID, or if you need some kind of documents for travel or for your transportation, this can be something that can go missing and also pop back up. Now, the oppositions that you're going to see, though, to your 9th house, which is more of an energy that's about your philosophies, your beliefs, right? The 3rd house, the lower mind, what we learn, how we communicate, kind of like grade school. 9th house, what we believe in and what we go to college for, or the things that require us to really kind of tap into our higher mind, higher education. You may find yourself in a bit of like a, intellectual debate with someone, with a teacher, a mentor. You might feel a bit at odds with a spiritual or even like a religious, practice. There can be documents that go missing, car problems that come up, or communication issues which inhibit you to go to school, to travel internationally, to get on the plane, to go somewhere. It can create some legal issues. That's something else that you want to be mindful of with the oppositions to the 9th house. I definitely can foresee this as being particularly tricky for you guys because there's a lot of like, wait, I thought I had this. Like, I thought this was covered. And then it being like a much longer process for applying to college or being able to kind of get the passport, which can be agitating. The positive in this is that, the sextiles to your ascendant allows you to tap into your intuition to avoid some of this. You're also going to see trines to Jupiter where you may have a friend that knows an attorney, knows somebody, knows a publicist, can help kind of get you, an in with a group or, help you with the process of rescheduling something if need be. So you might want to lean on friends who are kind of very much in touch. And you would also be one of the signs that I would say, because the 3rd house deals with movement, both you and Gemini, be very careful with moving, relocating, signing leases. You can see issues with, there being delays with being able to pick up U-Hauls. There can be things that can get broken. There can be miscommunications with, reservations or signing leases. For cars as well, I think that's something else that I would watch here. Definitely picking up or fixing a vehicle. There can be some bugs that can come up with this particular transit. Okay. All right, so let's see what the cards say for you, Cancer. The card that I got for you is the 8 of Swords, which I think is picking up on Mercury's connection to your 12th house, honestly. It's like the stress or the anxiety or feeling stuck and not being able to have a conversation, to which I would say, like, meditate on it. Talk to a mentor, a teacher, a therapist. It may also be beneficial for you to be writing, journaling, walking, biking, cycling, something that's going to help you move around so you can kind of get some of this anxiety out of your body. This is a card that's about feeling stuck and not knowing how to get out of a situation. And so I feel like for you, it can be that, you're like, oh, I'm stuck somewhere without cell service. How do I get around? I'm in a situation that, is unavoidable, or I got to, walk to the nearest store or somewhere where I can get, some kind of cell reception or somebody who's got a phone. So you can be feeling literally stuck in that. But I think this can be about mental limitations, communication limitations, and feeling like mentally it's hard for you to be able to discuss something or share something and having a bit of like a rigid mind, right? So you want to watch for that, especially with the oppositions to Saturn, okay? But remember, this is something that's temporary. You can pull yourself out of this. Good luck, Cancer. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You will be experiencing a Mercury retrograde in Virgo in your natal second house, which is about your possessions, your money, right? Finances, also self-esteem. And Mercury rules this particular house. It also rules your 11th house, which deals with goals and friends and networks and other people. And Mercury will retrograde in the second, which means you're seeing a slowing down effect of resources, maybe rearranging or moving money, or you're waiting to receive money, or there's some kind of slowing down of your spending habits maybe. I definitely would say be mindful of like lending. Borrowing and lending can be a little tricky this month because you're going to see oppositions to your 8th house. Okay, so where the second house is what I own, what I possess, what I spend, what's in my bank, what's in my wallet. The oppositions is the 8th house, which is, you know, the money I owe, the loans, mortgages. It can be your partner's money. It can be spousal support. It can be inheritances. All that stuff is limiting. And obviously with Saturn, you know, in your 8th house, you may not feel like you're getting the support that you need from other people. Saturn rules your relationships and also coworkers. So you might feel like there's some, you know, cutbacks that are taking place at work. It could affect benefits. There can be a sense of not getting as much support as you need from a partner, or potentially, you know, insurance isn't paying a claim, or they're kind of jerking you around about, you know, a tax issue, and you're like, oh, you know, now I have to show this information, or I have the burden of having to go and, you know, find the receipt, or, you know, trying to show proof that I paid for something so I can get reimbursed, or just kind of like arguing with something or someone about, you know, borrowing and lending or money owed. Okay, that's definitely going to come up this month. So watch out for that. It's not the best time to be spending money you don't have. It's a good time to be focusing on setting up a budget and focusing on like paying things off and taking note of whether it's like something that you spend on someone else and they say, hey, I'll get you back, that they don't. It could be a friend, it could be another person. You know, that's something that you really want to pay attention to, because money can kind of slip between the cracks here. Like a Mercury retrograde is like a loss that you might have in your second house because somebody forgot to pay you, or, you know, they are stalling a little bit, or they don't have it. And so if you find yourself in a pinch because you're expecting to get money in, but somebody's not paying you, or you can't quite get that loan, it can impact your ability to be able to spend things, and also for your ability to go and do things and socialize. But Mercury's connection to your 11th house can be about reevaluating your goals when it comes to your resources. So take note of like the give and take, and know that, you know, the trine to Jupiter, I think, is quite positive. There is a way to renegotiate your resources. I know some of you guys have been willingly taking a bit of a hit when it comes to your income, because you see the opportunity of having freedom in your career. Some of you guys have quit your salary jobs to start your own thing. Maybe you've taken different positions because you see the room for growth. And so there's a little bit of like reassessing your spending habits right now. And you got Venus retrograde in your first house. So you're learning how to redefine yourself without all of the extras and the bells and the whistles, right? Let's take a look and see what the cards say for you. The card that I got for you is the Six of Swords. So you're kind of in limbo, right? It's kind of being like you're in between. Maybe you're feeling like, you know, I just need a little cash to get me through. Or maybe there is extra expenses that might be relating to moves, movement, travel, right? That's what the Six of Swords is about. And it's about being in between. And so I wonder if this is about you kind of being like, okay, you know, I've got what I need to get me through, but like, is this sustainable, the way that I'm spending, or the salary that I'm making? And like, where do I need to make some changes? And I'm wondering if it's about cutting back on something. Are you cutting back on travel, right? South Node is now going through your third house. So some of you guys will say, well, I'm going to trade in my vehicle. I'm going to get something that's going to be used, or I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to do a lease. I'm going to also be, you know, focusing more on ninth house, which could be, you know, I need to go out of town or out of the state or out of the country more often. So do I need a car? I'm going to be going to school. So, you know, do I live on campus and potentially walk? So transportation might be part of this, and reevaluating spending habits pertaining to that. Good luck. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. Obviously, all eyes are on you guys. So I'm going to say the same thing I said to the other mutable signs, you know, just take a breath, okay? Obviously, Mercury rules your chart, so it rules you, your body, your actions, and also your mental capabilities. And it also has connections to your 10th house of career and reputation and work, all right? When Mercury goes retrograde, yeah, it's a little bit more challenging for you, especially because you need Mercury to be fully functional in order for you to kind of course correct everything. And it's going to be retrograde in your first house in your sign. And there's a lot of planets in your sign right now. So, you know, Sun's going to be there soon, Mars, Mercury. This is a lot of like, I'm taking action. And especially when you see Sun and Mars come into the same sign, in your first house, if you're a Virgo rising, it's a lot of like acting first, thinking later, right? It's like, oh, I didn't think of that. Or I kind of got snippy, or I got judgmental, or I got impatient. And that can happen with Mars being in your first house and the Sun going through your first house as well. So as Mercury retrogrades, there's a lot of like reevaluating. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have cut you off. I didn't understand what you were saying, or I didn't read the second half of the email, or I acted too quick and then it impacted my body in some way, or now it's creating some kind of mental stress. You might feel a little like wound up with some of these transits. Mercury's connection to your 10th house is also going to be about authority and whether or not you feel like you're in control of a situation. A Mercury retrograde in the first can definitely not only have you feeling mentally stressed out, but it can affect your body as well. And you're going to see these oppositions taking place between your 7th house. And so Mercury, Mars, you know, the Sun in your first house talking at people, right? And so there can be this effect of people kind of taking a step back and being like ghosty or not as communicative or not knowing how to communicate. I think Saturn and Neptune retrograde can also be about individuals who are just, they're not checked in, right? Or they're not sober, or they're avoidant, or they're not taking responsibility, or they're just like, they're checked out. And you getting agitated because you're calling them, texting them, you know, trying to communicate with a partner you're having issues with, or you're trying to kind of handle a matter with a child. Saturn can be children or a romantic partner. It could also be coworkers or helpers. And you're just not getting that response. You're not getting the feedback that you need. So you could be looking around being like, am I taking crazy pills? What's going on right now? Which can feel a little agitating, right? And it's going to question or have you question like your authority. Now, the positive here is that you are going to have trines to Jupiter, and Jupiter represents a counselor, a therapist, your astrologer. It can be also about faith. It can be about somebody who's a lawyer or somebody who can step in and help you mediate or kind of smooth over some of the issues that you're having with these like Piscean individuals. Yes, some of you guys may have experiences where you're potentially looking at changes on the home front because Jupiter rules your 4th house. So if you're needing help with immigration, if you're having issues involving a living situation, and you feel like you're being kind of targeted or you're not getting the support that you need, there can be people who can come in that can give you that higher information, that direction, that awareness of, you know, you're not crazy, or this is the best way to handle it, or this is like the legal way to kind of proceed. So that way you're able to kind of make headway with some of these challenging relationship dynamics that you might be having here over the next couple of weeks. Watch for putting your foot in your mouth, because it's very possible you could do that. And you may realize that, especially once the Sun starts coming into an opposition with Saturn, that, you know, you have said some things or done some things that a partner is like holding you accountable for. And then eventually when we start to see oppositions to Neptune, you can have people that can become even more so evasive as we're getting later into August and September, okay? Let's take a look and see what these cards say for you. The card that I get is the Page of Cups. So this is about emotions, which is interesting, right? This is very much like that mirrored effect. So I think like both Pisces and Virgo may see a lot of similarities. I think that for this, it can be talking about dealing with the Pisces or somebody who's emotionally immature, younger, or a romantic partner, or somebody who's kind of interested and like they're there and like you're really kind of like, yeah, I'm into this. And then that person kind of disappears. And it can seem like a good idea or a good connection, and like they may not be as mature as you need them to be. So there can be some agitation that can come from the fact that, oh, you know, there is this potential romantic connection and everything seems so great, and then you're making the effort and you're not kind of getting the response. Generally, this is a positive card though. So this does deal with like romantic connections and relationships, and I think it can kind of show you where some of you guys may be barking up the wrong tree, as much as I hate to say that. Like if you're trying to actively engage with somebody and you're showing up and you're doing the work and you're not getting what you need in response, that may be an indication that's like, hey, that may not be the direction to go. That may not be a fulfilling relationship, and it could be somebody who's a little idealistic and they have their heads in the cloud. Once again, still, the trines to Jupiter is like it pays to have somebody who can give you some really good advice. And Jupiter sextile Saturn, you know, whoever this individual is that gives you some kind of advice and how to navigate some of these relationships can help you better understand and maybe not react or take things so personally. Let me know. Good luck, Virgo. We have Libra and Libra rising. Libra, you're going to have Mercury going retrograde in your 12th house, which is hidden and kind of secretive. This is about rest and retreat, okay? Mercury rules your 12th house. It also rules your 9th house. And when it's retrograde in your 12th house, something is completing, Libra, okay? Once we get into Virgo season, there's a lot of planets that are moving through Virgo. It's right before your birthday. Naturally, you know, the month before your birthday, things are kind of winding down and you're getting ready for what's going to be your new year when you come into your birthday season. This is also going to be with a ton of energy, right? We're going to see during the Mercury retrograde, Mars is going to move into your first house. So you're going to be more active. We're going to see that there's going to be eclipses also in Libra season. That's going to be taking place if you're Libra rising in your first house, which is about your body changes, identity changes, the list goes on. So some Libra risings are anticipating this change is coming. I think with Mercury being the ruler of your 9th house, it can be reviewing and rethinking foreign travel. It can be looking for a retreat. Some of you guys might be staying up later and like learning or reading something, returning back to your studies, returning back to countries that you have visited before, reviewing your faith or philosophy in private. And this is, once again, similar to Aries, a bit of a sticky energy because you've got a lot of oppositions to your 6th house. And so I think Libra risings really understand the polarity complex, right? Like of being able or needing to do both houses. I say this as a Libra rising because everything is inverted, right? So unlike the Aries rising chart where you have Virgo in the 6th, Libra has to know how to be able to do the polarity in all of the various 12 houses. So, you know, you've got a lot of action in the hidden, mystical, magical, spiritual, you know, routines. So it's like, well, are you meditating? Are you cleaning up your, you know, private office space? Are you resting more? Are you taking care of your mental health? If you are, great. But, you know, that is as a result of doing your everyday chores in the day-to-day routine. And so maybe it's just me, but I have noticed a Mercury retrograde in the 12th house, all the bad habits come up. I've noticed transits in the 12th house, all the bad habits come up. And it'll get you, Libra. You need to be careful because the oppositions to both Saturn and Neptune means that it will have a negative impact on your productivity. It'll have a negative impact on your mental health, your ability to stay on task, to get things done. And quite frankly, you could be feeling really overwhelmed with a laundry list of things to do. And you can be feeling a little squirrely, right? So during this particular retrograde, you need rest and recuperation, and it is important for you to be maintaining a consistent kind of spiritual practice so that way you can kind of stay on top of your everyday routines. And so it's going to be different for everyone. Some of you guys will benefit from going to like a health or a medical spa. Some of you guys might benefit from actually taking a break or a vacation or going to a retreat. So that way you feel like you're getting a little bit of a reprieve from all the stuff that you have to do, but you also can avoid some of this stuff as well, right? There's a sense of needing to find the balance in both. So once again, for you, it is about mind, body, spirit balance, but a real emphasis on the spirit balance, Libra. Oh, and by the way, the trines, right, to Jupiter, which are positive, does kind of represent emotional breakthroughs. It does represent financial breakthroughs. Some of what you're meditating and thinking about might really significantly guide you intuitively when it comes to financial changes or what you're studying and what you're learning. Like for me, it's been a lot of doing research. It's been a lot of like meditating on things before making videos, and I have found it to be very helpful. I get for you the Knight of Cups. So to me, I mean, hi, Mars in the 12th house. That can be a little romantic, a little lusty. Is there a sense of getting lost in relationships right now? Possibly. I mean, it can be good for the romantic life, for the sex life, but it can also be, you know, is there so much that's going on where you're staying up at night and you're connecting with somebody, or you're traveling, or you're in different time zones, that it is impacting your daily routines? Maybe. The Knight of Cups is a water sign, so it can be a Pisces, it can be a Cancer or a Scorpio. It can also represent this more creative, idealistic, magical, intuitive kind of energy. And so for some of you guys, yeah, intuition can be very strong. You can be taking action based off your intuition. I think it's going to be really weird to have Mars in your sign and to have all this retrograde energy in your 12th, because it's like similar also to Virgo. Taking action and not thinking things through, and realizing that some of your actions are coming because you're jumping the gun, because you're anxious. So listening to your intuition, taking time to kind of wind down seems to be extra important, okay? Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. What's going on, guys? You are going to be having a Mercury retrograde in Virgo. This will be taking place in your natal 11th house. And this is kind of friendly for you because Virgo sextile Scorpio. So you can benefit, especially if you're a Scorpio rising 8 to 22 degrees. You'll experience sextiles, which is harmonious. So a Mercury retrograde in your 11th house is going to have you reevaluating your friends, your community, your goals. You might hear from friends that you haven't heard from in a while. You might hear that there's some stuff going on with some of your social circles. Likely there's a little bit of turbulence maybe going on with some of your friends because Mercury and Mars are there. Mercury starts the retrograde pretty close to Mars, so it tells me that like some friends might be coming to you about some kind of drama or some conflict or issues with their love life or problems with coworkers, and they're kind of saying to you like, oh, this thing is kind of going on in this group. And you might be kind of feeling like, keep me out of it. You know, I don't want anything to do with it because of the oppositions to your 5th house. Now, Mercury also has connections to the 8th house, which can be about secrets, gossip, sexy things, things that become exposed, manipulation, money owed. So with that Mercury retrograde in opposition kind of to Saturn and Neptune in your 5th house, there's a lot of like reconnecting with certain friends and then realizing like, ooh, maybe these are not my people, or like maybe we're not seeing eye to eye, and like really feeling into, does it make me feel happy being around some of these individuals? And do I have the same goals as them? It's likely been pretty social with these planets moving through your 11th house. If it hasn't, you're going to see this pick up with the sun going through there. But this is a house that's also about parties and get-togethers and celebrations and your goals. Now, I'm really loving the trines to Jupiter because I feel like if there is some stress going on with friends or some rearranging of your goals, it looks like you have a partner that's really supportive. They're there to kind of communicate and talk to you about this. And it can be a therapist, an astrologer, it can be a spouse, it can be a financial advisor, somebody who's like, okay, what are your goals? How do we make this possible? How can I help you? Or, oh, you're having issues with your friends. Let's talk about it. So lean on that support. I do feel like there's a lot of reevaluating. Is what my friend's doing, is what other people's goals, are those my goals? And do I want to do the same thing? And probably having some question marks because of the oppositions to Saturn and Neptune in your 5th house. If you're somebody who's a single Scorpio rising, you know, and you're kind of feeling like the relationship blues, or maybe there's changes going on with your friendships, you may find that like other people are going through some similar messiness and they're also having some issues. And the 11th house deals with like the lovers of other people or the kids of other people. So friends can be complaining about kids. You can also, with the trines to Jupiter, you know, it's possible some of you guys might hear from people you used to work with, or be hearing from your partner, oh, you know, so-and-so that I used to date, you know, reached out to me, and you kind of get your feathers ruffled a little bit. And I would say don't take it personally. It has nothing to do with you. There's just a little bit of like some rearranging that's going on with like other people. And so I think the oppositions to the 5th house is really questioning, Does it make me feel happy being around these people? You know, do I really need to feel supported or loved by these individuals? And how am I learning to really kind of touch on what I need? And that's especially interesting with Mars in opposition to Neptune. You may be feeling like the more that you're kind of getting lost in the crowd or going along with what friends want or what a group wants, you might be losing touch with what actually is a part of your dream, your vision, right? The card that I get for you is the Queen of Cups. We've pulled almost all of them. Are we going to pull the King of Cups? I wonder. Remember, guys, I said the oppositions to Pisces is going to be about emotions and if we're responding to things too emotionally. All right. So Scorpio, obviously you're emotional, right? So especially if you're a Scorpio woman, this is really important for you. It might be about just being like, look, you got to listen to your intuition. Don't idealize things. Don't get too lost and too dreamy. Don't feel like you have to follow what other people are doing or fall for the facade that, you know, somebody else has like a perfect life. It's okay to do things differently. That might be something that comes up for you during this particular transit. This can also be about the support of another water sign friend. So whether it's a Pisces or a Cancer, can there be a connection with them? Can there be a bit of back and forth with them? Sure. But generally, this is about leaning into your intuition and letting it guide you and learning to nurture that and knowing that your emotions are really important. Acknowledging your emotions are important during this period. Good luck. We've got Sag and Sag rising. What's going on, Sag? You are going to have a Mercury retrograde in your 10th house, which deals with your career, anything involving work and responsibility. And yeah, you like the other mutable signs, you're going to feel this. You're going to be feeling like you're being pulled in two directions. Okay, so Mercury rules career. So whether this is like bosses, presentations, schedules, meetings, but it also rules your 7th house of relationships. So this is like clients, business partners, your marketplace, your spouses. So that retrograde is going to be about rearranging your connection with other people. It can be about a status change. So some of you guys may make a change at work and you're talking to your partners about it or your clients about it. Some of you guys might be anticipating you're going to go through a status change in your life where you go from, you know, being in a relationship to being engaged, or you're going from, you know, being in a partnership to being single, and it's about making that significant status change. Maybe rearranging prices and things involving your services in a very public way can be kind of going down here as well. It depends. Here's the deal. It's like all full steam ahead with your career right now, okay? So Sun, Mercury, Mars, they're all gonna go through your 10th house, so it's a really time to show up in the world. But it's also stressful because this naturally squares your ascendant, so it puts the pressure on you. 10th house to your sign feels like an obligation, and it's very tedious because that's what Virgo is. And I also think that the oppositions to your 4th house is bringing up some of the similar themes that we're seeing from Gemini, where Gemini is feeling kind of pulled between career and home. You have a lot of demands going on in your professional, your public life right now, or in regards to a parent or, you know, your role out in the world. And it's like you have to show up and like put on your happy face. But you're feeling emotionally weighed down by things that are going on in regards to your home or your living situation. So whether that's issues with a parent, or if you're struggling emotionally, or if there's delays with buying a house or moving or renovations, it could be a sick parent. You know, it's just kind of like you're looking at things being like, okay, there's just a lot on my plate right now. And I especially think because Mercury is retrograde and it's going to kind of slightly be in opposition to Saturn as well as Neptune, there's a lot of needing to communicate with clients or with partners, you know, just how busy you are or what you're trying to achieve at work. And if you're not always able to physically be home to deal with like the day-to-day things like walking the dog, doing your chores, cleaning the house, taking care of kids, you know, showing up and taking a parent to a medical, you know, whatever, you're going to feel stretched a little thin. The positive is that you are going to see Mercury trine Jupiter, and Jupiter is your chart ruler. So as you're reworking something about work in your professional life, you know, if you're leaning on your healthcare professionals, your assistants, if you're willing to hire extra employees at work, if you're willing to stick to a healthy routine and consistency, that consistency, Jupiter and Taurus, even though it's boring, can hold you accountable, and it can kind of, you know, keep everything together. And I think that's going to be about maintaining positivity. It's about maintaining healthy habits. It's about changing the way that you're eating, changing the way that you're working. And I do feel like it may pay to actually bring people in to help you with all the busyness that you feel like you can't do, right? Especially because, you know, Jupiter is the traditional ruler of your 4th house. So if you need to hire somebody to come in and like walk the dog or repaint something or fix something because you're at work, even though you could do it, like do it, because it's going to give you the capability of being able to be more focused on your career. And so many planets in the 10th house, especially if you're a boss or a manager or you run your own business, you're going to learn that part of being a good boss right now is learning how to delegate tasks and knowing when to be like, this is beyond me, or this is too much, or I don't know how to do this. So, you know, bring in the necessary help to make your life a little bit easier, and expect to be feeling pulled in both directions, okay? Job changes can happen, you know, quitting jobs, going back to old jobs, changing job hours, and things like that as well. The card that I get for you is the 4 of Swords, which is about rest and recuperation. So how ironic that that's really what Saturn and Neptune in the 4th house wants you to do. It wants you to also take time to rest and recuperate and like know when to be like, I have a day off, I'm not working. And how to create maybe boundaries between work and home, or emotions and what's going on at work, you know, like learning to drop the family drama at the door when you get to work, or vice versa, and not carrying it over into like the next thing. And perhaps feeling a little lost, right? I mean, I think a lot of people who have Saturn going through the most southern part of their chart right now, it feels heavy, but it's designed that way. It's designed that way to get you thinking about kind of rebuilding and creating the whole, almost like the base, right? Or the foundation of your home. So that way this is solid, so you can actually feel like you can be more productive. So if your house is built solidly, you're going to be able to do everything that you need to do right now. And whether that's your emotional home or your physical home, you'll start to notice, you know, what is sound and what's not, and what needs to be kind of tweaked when it comes to either career or home. But 4 of Swords, rest, recuperation, taking a break. And so some of you guys might actually, with the retrograde, be like, I'm taking a couple days off so I can rest and recuperate and actually strategize and plan for the latter part of this year. Good luck, Sag. I hope you get that break. I know you guys are working your tails off. Capricorn and Capricorn rising, you are going to be experiencing Mercury retrograde in your natal 9th house. Okay, so good news is this is a sister sign. And especially if you're a Cap rising, if you have any placements between like 7 and 22 degrees, you're going to be experiencing some earth trines. So it's really good for the Cappies. Sister signs or earth signs are going to produce physical changes. So you, Taurus and Virgo, you're all going to kind of get a little bit of that. You especially, actually, when the Mercury retrograde begins, Mars is trine Pluto in your sign. So there's something that's like revving up that's allowing you to go through some kind of personal transformation. Now, a Mercury retrograde in your natal 9th, what does this create? Well, challenges with legal stuff, delays getting on and off of planes, sometimes lost luggage, issues with documents and papers pertaining to legality, education, publishing, traveling. You may find that there is something slowing down or changing direction about what you believe in, right? And so you may find that with the 9th house stellium here, you're like, okay, I'm really focused on getting into a routine and something that's going to help me maintain the faith, but it's like very detail oriented. And you're having to kind of go through it. So something about a change in your philosophy or your belief system also is like how you're changing the way that you look at productivity, or how you're eating, or how you're exercising or moving around, you know, in life. It can be a time where, because Mercury represents, you know, workers or mortgages, 6th house, health, something about these changes, it's not just about philosophy, it's going to be about productivity, work, and also, yeah, your beliefs on some of these topics. I like Mars trine Pluto. I think it's empowering. I like Mercury trine Jupiter in your 5th house. I think a lot of you guys are thinking more about creative projects, publishing, if you need to be going and, you know, doing a certification or going back to school or connecting with a mentor so that way you can do more of these things. And perhaps maybe some of you guys are also just getting in touch with like your inner creative with trines to Jupiter in your 5th house. Now, here's what's sticky, right? What's sticky is that you're going to see Mercury is going to make some slight oppositions to Saturn as well as Neptune. And you're really going to feel this because Saturn rules your chart. So as the sun is coming into an opposition with Saturn and Mercury is coming into an opposition with Neptune, there's going to be some miscommunications that might be international, some missing documents, some issues with a legal situation, or needing to review or go over something that you thought you learned, right? So I could see a lot of people having like delays with getting classes or not getting visas and having to call, what is it, immigration attorneys and things over some of this stuff. Some of you guys are needing to talk to lawyers for other reasons because you're having challenges with neighbors or issues with a car issue or with moving or looking over like a contract or a lease. Problems with siblings can arise here as well. I've heard that from a number of Capricorns. Anyway, you can see the slowdown, and I think the key here is to be mindful that you are Saturn, so there can be people who are kind of like either, trying to tell you what to do or what to think or what to believe in, and like it really pays to take a step back and be quiet and like let other people be kind of chaotic and let this play out, and almost like a saying less is more mentality, to be really honest with you. To be sane, like you got to be going for walks, you got to be journaling, meditating, reflecting on things, doing all that Pisces third house thing. Maybe you're regularly reading tarot, right? So you have a better understanding of like how a situation is going to play out. So you're gaining some kind of like confidence in, the whole process. But watch for beliefs changing and the possibility and the opportunity also for you to learn something new in the process. So you get the High Priestess, which I really like with Saturn in Pisces, to be honest with you, and Neptune in Pisces as well. I could definitely see this about like learning to trust your intuition, like really being in touch with your intuition and knowing when to be like, no, I've got this. Like, this is what I believe in. This is what I feel like is going to happen. This is what intuitively is coming to me, and like having faith in that process. And maybe your beliefs are changing because you're learning to rely on that more. But this is, once again, speaking less, right? Listening more, not needing to say anything, kind of keeping some things kind of close to your chest and not sharing it with other people because not everybody is going to be worthy of getting a response. And it may be like very much like not feeling like you need to cast pearls before swine. Like there can be a sense of you having a lot of advice or information that could benefit someone. But if they're being condescending or they're talking down to you or like whatever, you're gonna be like, I don't really see the point. I'm not gonna go there because it's better just to leave some things unsaid. Good luck, Capricorn. All right, we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You'll be experiencing a Mercury retrograde taking place in Virgo in your natal 8th house. Sexy. So this retrograde is an interesting one for you, kind of similar a little bit to Leo. You want to be mindful of borrowing and lending, spending money. That's going to be a big theme. The 8th house deals with like secrets, resources, tapping into other people's resources, money. So things like spousal support and child support or insurance related matters, money owed, okay? And as Mercury is retrograding, these things can slow down. So people may come back and say, oh, we're serving you with this notice, you're behind on this bill, and you're like, what bill? I never got it. Or you're reworking or reviewing like a tax matter or an investment matter or something pertaining to like a loan or other people's resources. Now, Mercury rules your 5th house, which does deal with children, creativity, younger people, romance. So for some of you guys, you're reevaluating how much money are my partner and I spending on insurance for our kid? How much is a kid asking for? Am I cutting them off? Am I giving them too much? Do I need to talk to my kids about the birds and the bees? 8th house. It could also be about some secret coming out pertaining to children that's kind of shocking. And maybe lovers or creative people or partners asking for money from you or asking for support, and you're like not sure if you want to help them or not sure if you want to tell them if you're going to give them that financial support or not. So there's going to be a lot of like rearranging going on with other people's money, basically. Challenging for sure. I mean, it's interesting because, the second house is where we spend or where we, can like purchase things, but the eighth house is where we pay up. So for some of you guys with like a Venus retrograde in your seventh, relationships are changing, which may also impact your resources. And whether that's joint resources or, just having to, pay off debt, that can definitely be something that's kind of being rearranged. I'd be really careful with taking chances with money, gambling with money, especially money that you may not have. Keep in mind, Saturn is your traditional ruler and it's moving through your second house of money. And so you're learning to be a little bit more frugal, a little bit more resourceful. There may be some people who come through that are like, hey, you owe on this. And I would be like, show me the document, show me the bill. And having to actually go through all of the details, or if somebody is requesting reimbursement, go through the details and make sure that you're looking through all of that. Because there can be something a little sneaky and suspicious. Eighth house can be crime. And Neptune can be where things go missing. So you're also somebody who's more predisposed maybe to getting hit with like a scam. So I would be really careful, especially like emails, phone calls, text messages, tax scams. My gosh, I got a text message earlier from the post office, right? It's already like the shadow. And so the post office texted me earlier and they were like, oh, we have your package. Just click on this link and like send us all of your information. And I was like, it came up on an iPhone. So I'm such a jerk. It had their email. And I was looking at this being like, this is crazy. So I responded and I was like, I'm going to report this. And just so you know, like if you're going to scam people, you probably shouldn't have your email attached to this. And they like responded back to me and they went crazy. And I was like, that's how I know it's not the post office. Anyway, hostile communication, right? Mercury, Mars. Watch for that. If you find that somebody's like really badgering you about having something paid, I would be like, where's the receipt? Like, show me the proof and, be mindful how to spot a scam. Okay. All right, let's take a look and see what these cards say. Ooh, you got the Hierophant, you and Taurus. I'm wondering, I was looking at Jupiter, I guess I should have said this, but Mercury's going to trine Jupiter a couple times. So it can be about handling financial issues within the home, merging money together, inheritances, spousal money that you're kind of putting together. And doing something traditional with it, or trying to be a little bit more conservative with how you're spending or what you're doing with your resources and rearranging some things. This is the card that deals with Taurus. That's why I'm really pointing out that particular trine. But we know with like Jupiter and Uranus in your fourth house, a lot's changing with your home and your family. Some of you guys are rapidly moving. You're seeing changes with relatives. They're being kind of crazy. Some people are going to be kind of demanding or arguing over money, property, resources. So be careful. Definitely a retrograde in the eighth house. You can deal with deaths and transition. It's not guaranteed, but I think with some of the oppositions, it might be like the responsibility that you might have pertaining to home or family, expenses. And having to be the person who's kind of like digging through all of that stuff, particularly documents or investments. But trying to kind of do the right thing, right? The Hierophant, and like going about it in a way that's like really by the book, and making sure that you're following all the rules and the regulations pertaining to how to handle this financial situation. Good luck, Aquarius. We've got Pisces and Pisces rising. What's going on, Pisces? Okay, so obviously you and Virgo, you guys are the ones. Leave me comments below. I want to hear how you're feeling with this energy, that are really having a difficult time communicating, right? So Mercury's going retrograde in Virgo, which is your opposite sign, and that is your seventh house. So this is about marital partners, committed relationships, people that you're kind of dating. It can be about clients. It can be about your relationships with coworkers. It can be about your relationships with healthcare workers. And Mercury will retrograde, which means like other people are not communicating as well with you, okay? And you might feel like you're speaking a different language. Quite frankly, some of you guys have been doing the relationship do-si-do for a little while here since you started seeing oppositions between Mars and Saturn, and maybe you put your foot down with a coworker or you put your foot down with a partner and you're like, this is not working for me. And there has been either miscommunications or taking space, and now through the retrograde, you're trying to kind of figure out, okay, can we reconcile? Can we make it through? Can we make this work? Other people can be having health issues or issues with their career that can be coming up, which is stressing them out or making them feel a little frazzled, and they may not know how to best express that energy. And so with Saturn and Neptune in your sign, you can be kind of taking a standoffish approach that's like, I don't want to upset the apple cart. I'm going to let them like have their freak out and like, let's see if they can get it together, while maintaining, right, oppositions to Saturn, your composure, and also, you know, being really firm about your boundaries. What's annoying is that Mercury also rules your 4th house. So for some of you guys, it's a back and forth with a partner about a living situation. It's like, are we moving in together? Are we not? It can be a back and forth that you're having with a sibling and having some conflict with a sibling over a home or family or property matter. The list goes on. For all of the mutable signs, this is agitating and happening in angular houses, which makes life really loud. Truth be told, I do think that, you know, Mercury in a trine to Jupiter does make me feel like there's a silver lining. And the fact that Jupiter is sextile, you know, Saturn in your sign. So I do feel like communication is king. Getting it in writing, sitting down, you know, talking in person, physically, not like texting or going back and forth over the phone, like having a face-to-face conversation is ideal. And with Mercury retrograde, other people are re-evaluating or rethinking or coming back and sitting down and willing to talk to you. And there can be opportunities for clarity, right? And for you guys to be able to kind of like speak your piece. With Venus retrograde in the 6th house, you might already be feeling like, you know, a relationship's on the rocks or it's on the fritz. Yes, you are one of those signs that will potentially reconnect or hear from an ex, sure. You may have a dream about them and then they call you. You may run into them in some way. Yes, that can happen, but I feel like with Saturn and Neptune in your sign, you're a little weary or a little hesitant to just immediately let somebody back in. And I think rightfully so with some of these oppositions. Keep in mind, when we get into October, we're going to see Venus go into your 7th house and it's going to oppose Saturn. So if somebody's been kind of wackadoodle, they're back and forth, they're giving you a hard time, you're making up, breaking up, making up, breaking up, and then they finally come around in 2 months and they're like, let's do this, you're going to be like, you know, like, get out of here, kick dirt. And I do think that, to me, it seems like there is going to be a sense of somebody else being frazzled. There's no way around that. Be mindful that, you know, there is a lot of shadow stuff here. So with Saturn and Neptune, if you're being avoidant, if you're not communicating, if you're giving somebody the silent treatment, they can be kind of like acting kind of wildly and not knowing how to reach you or communicate with you very well. And I think a retrograde can be about them realizing they need to rework the way that they express themselves and communicate with you, especially things that they've been really private about, or things involving their home or their living situation or their family, or maybe their inability to be aware of how their emotions are impacting them. And so, yeah, you guys can kind of feel like you're a little bit at odds for a little bit. But if something is a problem right now, I would say make it bigger and be extra cautious and aware. With a Mercury retrograde in your 7th, a Venus retrograde in your 6th, you know, if the past comes calling, it does not necessarily mean it's here to stay. Sometimes retrogrades are about closing out that cycle and wrapping things up and not feeling as if you have to keep repeating the same over and over trauma drama with a relationship, or it can be finally kind of getting closure. And some of you guys might actually connect with or meet somebody who reminds you of the past, right? So that's something to think of as well. All right, so the card that I get for you is the Sun, which is a good card, but I wonder if this has anything to do with the Sun coming into opposition with Saturn. Saturn is about taking space. It's about your goals, and Saturn in your 1st house is like, you know, it's challenging relationships, definitely, but this is about leveling up when it comes to boundaries. Right? Saturn retrograde in your 1st house is like reevaluating. What do I need? Neptune retrograding. Oh, you know, how has my energy level or my direction or my lack of direction, I guess, been affected because other people have been like kind of driving the crazy train, Mercury, Mars, opposed Neptune. Could this be about the relationship with a parent? I wonder if Sun Saturn can be about the relationship with a parent and the fact that Mercury rules the 4th house, that there is a back and forth that you're having with a parent and you're having to kind of hash this out with someone, maybe. Especially somebody who might be like a dominating parent. You know, the Sun can be about a father figure. The Sun illuminates things too. Don't get me wrong, this is a positive card. You know, this is about happiness and overcoming things. And so those of you guys who are in relationships that you're committed to, if you are living with them, or if you're engaged, or if you're married, or if it's a long-term business partner or somebody that you just have to work with, you're going to look at this and go, we have to find a way. And so a Mercury retrograde can give you the opportunity to hash everything out, so you're not feeling like you're becoming passive aggressive or that you're kind of holding back and telling people how you feel. And it can be a time where there can be relationship course corrections. And I'm seeing 1, 2, 3 at one point houses in your seventh house. So sometimes the seventh house can represent that other person that comes in. So could it be a mediator? Could it be a therapist? Could it be a relative that steps in and kind of helps with the communication? Maybe. To shine a light on, where it's not that you guys aren't on the same team, it's that you guys are not hearing each other, right? And so watch for people who are waiting to talk, not necessarily listening. And if you're not feeling like somebody is hearing you, maybe it takes another person to shine a light on that and help make your partner, kind of aware of the fact that there is something that's like imbalanced, right? All right, guys. Well, I hope that was helpful in giving you a little bit more insight into the Mercury retrograde. As always, I appreciate your likes, your comments, and your shares. You guys giving me a thumbs up or leaving me a comment really helps with the channel algorithm. It helps get this video out to YouTube. It helps the channel grow, and it allows me to be a full-time content creator. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts below, so make sure you leave me a comment. Let me know how this is affecting you in your chart. Were you born with Mercury in opposition to Saturn or Neptune? Are you equally confused with some of the stuff that's going on in the world? Do you have some facts or information that you would like to drop? Let me know. And before you go, make sure you click the button below. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm hearing some people are not subscribed, and it wouldn't surprise me after this video. But yeah, other than that, I will see you guys tomorrow. We're doing live readings on the channel. I'm going to drop the link in the community tab, so if you want to sign up for an astrology reading and maybe find out what this Mercury retrograde is going to be about, you can check that out. We've also got a sun Kazemi with Venus that's setting up as well, so you guys might want to go and look at some of the Venus and Leo videos. That'll give you some ideas about what is kind of, coming up over the next couple days also. Otherwise, I'll see you back here on Sunday for Astro Weather. And if you like my content, you want to support me, or you want to book a reading with me, check out my website below at beyondtheveiltarot.com. I teach classes, I have one-on-one sessions, I have products, and while you're on my website, sign up for my newsletter so you're alerted as to when I have new courses or lessons. We've got some eclipse webinars that are going to be coming up here soon. All right, guys, I will see you on Friday or on Sunday, depending on when you guys check in with me. Enjoy the rest of your week. Happy Mercury retrograde. Take care.